Good evening, and welcome to my review of Renfield. It is an instant movie review, no? Hello, it's Adam here, again with an instant movie review for you. Yes, tonight I saw Renfield, the latest film starring Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult and Awkwafina, and it tells the story of Robert Montague Renfield, played by Nicholas Hoult. He has been a familiar or an aide to Count Dracula for many hundreds of years, and it's only now that he discovers that there's more to life than being a servant to a manipulative, narcissistic monster of a boss. And maybe it's time to stand on your own 2 feet, and people will respect that. Maybe your boss will be alright with it. I'm sure he would. Unless he's Count Dracula, played by Nicolas Cage. And there we lie, that's the story. Or is it? Or is it really the story? No, because Awkwafina is involved in this as well, and she plays a traffic cop, who's lives in the shadow of her father's image, now in a corrupt police force, while she's trying to bring down a big drug cartel family, and that's also put into the mix. Why? I'm not overly sure, but it somehow ties into the story. But it really shouldn't be there. This should just be a film about Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult and their relationship together, and not have an Awkwafina anywhere in sight. There you go. So, I mean, that's almost pretty much my review. This film was made for $65 million, and I think it's only made about 17 or 18 back. So I suppose it's been a box office failure, which is a shame, because there is some redeeming factors in this. Number one, Nicolas Cage as Dracula just seems like an absolute no-brainer. He is fantastic in the film. Nicholas Hoult is channeling so much Hugh Grant energy in this. It is crazy. I almost felt like I was watching Hugh Grant from 4 Weddings and a Funeral or 9 Months or one of those things. But he's really, really entertaining and great to watch. Awkwafina has pretty much nothing to do. Well, she does, but none of it's fun. None of it's Awkwafina fun. It's just kind of, it's a bit boring, to be honest, and I don't really understand why it's there. And yeah, the great sides of this is the production design for this film is fantastic. The costume design is great. The makeup is fantastic. All the great bloodletting with the prosthetics and so on and so forth is great. Nicolas Cage's makeup and the evolution of that during the film is great. Yeah, all of those aspects are really good. And Chris McKay's direction, the guy who did The Tomorrow War and the Lego Batman movie, is pretty good. Like, it's a pretty solid direction. And Cage has a bit of a fun in the opening sequences and in the end, with a lot of classic monster movie Dracula style stuff going on. So that was pretty cool to see. But overall, this film lacks control and conviction, and it actually felt a bit boring, and I realised it only went for 90 minutes. And I felt like I've seen 3-hour films that felt like they went for less length than what this film did. It just seemed to drag a little bit. And I think they're the sections with Awkwafina that really didn't really gel. Yeah, so it's a shame, because Nicolas Cage is great. Nicholas Hoult is great. I just wish they'd had another draft through the screenplay and gone, yeah, you know what, we don't need it. It doesn't need to be there. This needs to be a film about these 2 people, and we'll just make it work. So, yeah. So, anyway, I would encourage you to go and see Renfield, because I don't think there's enough of these horror comedies around, and I think it's a good idea because it's kind of fun. It's not scary, it's not overly funny, and it's not overly action-packed. We're kind of sitting somewhere in the middle. So if you're a bit squeamish of digital blood and body parts being ripped off, you might want to check into somewhere else, not to this movie. And I also believe, from speaking to one of the people at the cinema tonight, that the Australian release of this has been modified to give it an MA rating rather than an R, which is extremely sad because I wouldn't have minded seeing the real uncut version. Anyway, there it is. Renfield, I'd probably give a 6 out of 10. 6 to 6.5. It's fine. There's nothing overly bad about it. It's just, I wish there was more Cage and less Awkwafina. Okay. Good night, everyone. Off I go into my den, my sleep, my coffin. Good night. I'm not coughing. That doesn't mean I have a Transylvania cold. Yes. Good night. I better turn my camera off.